It was 9:28. The car was parked, bag packed stuffed with the essentials. I was ready. I was 30 minutes into the hike when my mother called me. "Yellow," I said. "Hey sweetheart, how are things going with that tro?" "So far so good, hadn't found a spot for sleeping though." "Well, good luck with that. Also be safe, don't know why you decided to camp there but just be safe, okay?" "Don't worry ma, I'll be safe, alright." "Okay then, bye Ray, love you." "Love you too ma." I walked and walked more, passing by trees that were bigger than buildings, bushes home to exotic bugs with unnatural colors, rivers containing salamanders with 3 legs. I watched birds fly through the forest and into the sky. It was beautiful, I felt great even. However, despite of all of these nice views, I still couldn't find a place to build my tent. If anything, it was odd. The trees were all evenly spaced out, there was no movement on the path. It just went straight on. A path should at least have some bumps in it, but this one didn't even have a stick to step on. And the sun, it should be at its peak by now. But it's still at the same spot when I entered the forest. That was concerning. Eventually found this one part of the path. It branched from the road I was taking. Unlike this one, it actually looked like a path for hiking, messy and muddy. Yet found myself just standing, my body was giving me goosebumps. I didn't know whether I should continue walking or follow this new path. And yet my legs decided for me, walking down this uncharted path. I came upon this sign that read, "Keep out," which my body ignored and climbed the gate. My body walked and walked more, not knowing when to take a break. And there, right in front of me, a flower. It was thicker than the others around it, gray to the bone with red faded towards the end of the petals. My body gets to an even level with the flower, my eyes staring into the center of the flower. There was a tiny ball at the center with a straight line in the center. The gray parts of the stem almost looked like exposed muscle, pulsing and moving like a muscle too. I reached for the flower, the tiny ball opened, and I watched me as I fumbled onto the ground. The flower was now glowing, the muscles it had for a stem was now fully shaking. Its one eye, like a cyclops, just stared at me. It didn't blink, it didn't move, just stared. Standing there, with the time around us stopping. The earth around it was now shaked, the flower grew taller and taller. A shoulder now exposed for me to see. Its body being made out of a plant-like material with very little real muscle. A arm bursted through the dirt, it shoved itself out of the earth enough for the other arm to come out. That was my sign to get out. My body ran and ran, the sound of the creature echoed through the forest. I pushed through bushes, piles of leaves, weaving past tree after tree. Any time the monster sounds faded, they will appear again in a different direction. The more I ran, the more the environment started to change as well. The trees gradually stretching into the sky, almost looking paint-like. The branches at the end having hands, all reaching out. Every single one looking to be reaching for something impossible, something bigger than themselves. And the sky, that red-soaked sky, it went past the horizon line and beyond. And all of the smaller plant life now melting into the ground, looked like pieces of flesh now merged into the skin like ground. Wherever I was, it was not the place where I began. I hid behind a tree, just trying to catch my breath. The flower thing looked behind any tree it could see. It's slowly coming to the patch of trees I was hiding in. My heartbeats growing faster and louder. Sweating was sliding down my face. Visible shaking in my hands. I felt so lost, so alone. I just wanted to be alone with Mother Nature, but now was alone with that thing. Call me weak, call me stupid for this, but I cried. I dragged my body down against the tree and cried. That thing cries echoing throughout this hell, and I broke down. My neck feeling tingling, my vision was blurry, me curling up into a ball. At the time, it felt so lost, the hell was I supposed to do with that thing? And it's one eye looking for me. The silence of everything now surrounding the entire area of this place. with the sound of a little bird singing cutting through that hellish silence. Couldn't tell you why, even if you pointed a gun at me, but I just ran. I followed the sounds of the little bird. I thought at least if I was going to die, I would at least see something beautiful. The beast saw and chased me, its cries sounding like it came from the deepest pits of the human brain. I gave it all of my might and sprinted. If I was going down, I'll do it while giving all that my body had to offer. Finally, I found the source of the bird's singing. It was coming out from this circle attached to a tree. It had something covering it, but it was clear enough to see what was through it. It was a forest, but it was covered in green, healthy trees and singing birds. With all that my body had left, I dashed towards the gate, threw myself into the circle and bursted through the other side. Oh, the fresh, clean air. The trees all randomly placed, with beautiful shades of brown. And the birds, oh how lovely are their singing. But quickly remembered where I just came from. I looked behind me to see if the beast followed me. And it didn't. Hell, it wasn't even there. It was gone, nowhere to be seen. However, something was there. It took me a while, but it was there. It was a huge creature in the distance. It towered over the trees, and beyond doubt its body parts so impossible to describe, so void of detail I couldn't understand. It gave a bloodthirsty cry that would make a skinwalker tremble in fear. The portal that saved me was now closing. The last thing I ever saw of that place was the giant entity taller than a mountain. I'm in my car as I'm typing this. My ma called me, but I didn't respond. I just sent her a text that I'm okay. Still trying to wrap my head around what just happened. Hell, I almost died, and that place. My body shivers, but my mind is telling me to go back. My heart is hoping that never happens. That flower beast, how something so small can turn into that is beyond me. There's something that I have to tell you though. I wasn't telling the full truth about everything. The thing I saw before the portal closed, there was one thing my human brain could recognize. Despite having a body so impossible a physical form, it had one thing I could see. One giant eye. As a child, I had always been intrigued by stories, those whispered tales that seemingly floated through time. So, when my family moved into an old house nestled in the heart of a charming suburb, I found myself captivated by the peculiar energy that enveloped the place. The house exuded an old-world charm, complete with its creaky wooden floors and vintage fixtures. Yet, it wasn't the house's visible antiquity that caught my attention. It was the subtlety of something less tangible, a peculiar sense that this dwelling was more than just beams and boards. The first inkling of this peculiarity came not from shadows darting across the walls or eerie silhouettes, but from faint, muffled whispers. They weren't the typical ghostly murmurs that horror stories paint. Instead, they felt like the remnants of conversations, soft echoes buried within the walls. At night, when the world was shrouded in silence, I would often find myself lying awake, straining to discern these murmurs. They were never distinct or clear, more like the distant hum of voices just beyond my grasp, fading in and out like the ebb and flow of the tides. I remember gathering the courage to ask my parents about it. They chuckled and dismissed it as the ordinary settling noises of an old house, or perhaps the faint murmur of neighbors' conversations drifting through thin walls. But I couldn't shake the feeling that these whispers held something deeper, something entwined with the very fabric of the house's history. The house had been in the possession of the Thompson family for generations before we acquired it. Mrs. Thompson, the sweet old lady who handed over the keys to us, often spoke about the family's connection to the town's history. Her stories were filled with anecdotes about her ancestors, the laughter that once reverberated through the halls, and the tears that had soaked the floorboards. The whispers persisted, sometimes more audible than other times. Occasionally, they sounded like arguments, indistinct but fervent. On other nights, they seemed to carry the giggles of children playing in distant rooms. I strained to decipher words, but they remained elusive, as though the walls were guarding the secrets of past conversations. As the years passed, I grew accustomed to the ethereal whispers, almost embracing them as an intimate part of my nocturnal routine. It became a familiar, albeit enigmatic, aspect of the house that I never quite understood. When my family eventually decided to move to a new neighborhood, the sense of leaving those whispers behind was bittersweet. The new owners, a young couple with a daughter, visited to inspect the house before finalizing the purchase. Curiosity got the better of me, and I cautiously mentioned the whispers to them. Their expressions shifted, and the young girl's eyes widened with wonder. "I hear them too!" she exclaimed with excitement, her voice filled with the innocent curiosity of childhood. The parents exchanged glances, wearing knowing smiles. "Looks like the house has its way of storytelling," the father remarked, patting the girl's head affectionately. It was a moment of revelation, a realization that these whispers weren't confined to my imagination alone. The house, it seemed, had a way of preserving the echoes of lives lived within its walls. As we bid farewell to the old house, I carried with me the mystery of those whispers, now shared and confirmed by another. They weren't haunting or ghostly, but rather a silent testament to the stories and memories the house held close. In hindsight, the whispers weren't eerie, but rather a subtle reminder of the history that seeped into the very foundations of the house. They were the echoes of laughter, conversations, and emotions, tiny fragments of lives that once intertwined within those walls. The old house had a way of retaining the essence of its past, immortalized in these whispers, a tribute to the stories that lingered, softly murmuring through the corridors, eternally part of the house's tale. This just happened, and I'm still pretty shaken up by it all. But this evening, whilst putting away some clothes in my closet, I noticed the entry point to my attic had been disturbed and set ajar. I live in a condo with my wife and child. Our master bedroom has a walk-in closet with an access point/lid or whatever to our attic. I don't believe the attic connects with any other condo, but we do share walls with neighbors on both sides. As I was folding and putting away laundry this evening, my wife walked in from the connecting bathroom. Our master bedroom's bathroom connects directly across from the walk-in closet, so they face entryways, and went to ask me something when she gasped and said, "Look up!" My blood turned cold immediately. There it was. The entry point drywall lid was lifted out of place and set ajar. She had been giving our child a bath at the same time, basically right there, and I froze for a moment, not knowing exactly how to handle the situation. I got a hold of myself and dialed 911 while my wife and child went downstairs in a hurry. She got the both of them ready while I stayed on guard watching the entry to the attic crawl space. Police showed up after what felt like an eternity and checked up there but couldn't find anything. No signs of forced entry, etc., just an obviously lifted up and placed ajar crawl space cover. Now I'm here alone wondering if we overreacted or what the fuck exactly happened. Somebody or something moved that lid/door/cover or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't bumped or hit by myself or my wife, and my child is not able to get anywhere near the access point. The creepiest part/thing that bothers me the most is I don't know if it was moved from inside the attic or from my closet below. Police said the drywall that connects up there wasn't broken or cut open, etc. Again, I live in a condo with neighbors on both sides, and there was no signs of disturbed fiberglass near the entry or around my closet, so no one was obviously crawling around or messing shit up at least. I'm seriously thinking about somehow placing a lock on the entry point, but I'm not good with that kind of handiwork, and wouldn't even know how to begin cutting/making a sturdier lid/access to even try to put a lock on one. I know this might not be considered paranormal to most, but I had a dream about a similar situation a couple weeks to a month or so ago. In my dream, a woman called me seemingly on a random day and said bluntly, "Is there someone inside your house?" I panicked and rushed everyone in my house out the door. I had my wife out front with my kid, but I also had other family members over that day, so not exactly the same situation, and I can't remember if we found anyone or anything that day in my dream either. It's been a strange night to say the least. I definitely don't think I'm going to be getting much of any sleep tonight, that's for sure. Thanks again for reading, and any advice to my given situation would be greatly appreciated.